It sucks when you return to a game you used to play as a child and it doesn't hold up as well as you remember, doesn't it? Last October, I uploaded a video talking about two licensed games I grew up with, Scooby-Doo Night of 100 Frights and Monster House. And while both of those games are nothing to run home about, I knew that even as a child, so I didn't have high expectations when I returned to them. Today's a bit different though, because I recently decided to replay Naruto Rise of a Ninja, a game I revered as a child, but also a game I haven't revisited in at least a decade. So to say I had high hopes going back into this game is an understatement. And well, before I say my thoughts on this game, let me ask all you guys a question. Is anyone really satisfied with the state of anime games? Specifically Battle Shonen. If you want to play one that's not another shallow arena fighter or mobile gacha game that exists to give you a hit of dopamine every time you get to do a new multi-summon, then your options are gonna be limited to action-adventure games or other various spin-offs that both tend to lean on the mediocre/boring side of things. There's a lot more untapped potential in the gamification of a Battle Shonen's world and power structure is what I'm trying to say. And while my feelings have definitely soured on this game, as you'll soon find out, I still don't think any anime game has recognized that potential better than the forgotten Rise of a Ninja. Rise of a Ninja isn't a completely obscure or unheard of game, but it being an Xbox 360 exclusive doesn't help with its legacy being remembered at all. You see, early in the 360's lifespan, Microsoft realized the Xbox brand wasn't so popular in Japan compared to their peers, and they wanted to penetrate the market, so they struck partnership deals with companies left and right for exclusive ownership of their titles. These were mostly JRPGs and anime games by Japanese developers such as Blue Dragon and Tales of Vesperia, and while most of them weren't complete flops, they didn't give the Xbox the commercial success Microsoft wanted in Japan either. So you would think that if an already massively successful Japanese franchise such as Naruto had a 360 exclusive game, then it would boost the Xbox's reputation in Japan somewhat, right? Well, no, it didn't, because Rise of a Ninja didn't even see a release in Japan due to the fact it was made by the little-known Western developers Ubisoft. In fact, we don't even have hard confirmation that Ubisoft and Microsoft struck some kind of deal for console exclusivity, but I said all of that to say, I think the reason we don't hear this game's praises sung a lot is because it got the double kiss of death. It's a Western-only Xbox 360 exclusive. I don't want to get too far ahead before I actually speak about the game either, but I do think it's important to stress just how unique a game this was in the distant year of 2007. Before Rise of a Ninja, there were some action-adventure anime games, but few, if any, matched this game's ambition to blend storytelling and gameplay and exploration quite like it does. Some games were limited by hardware constraints and simpler game design, while others provided completely run-of-the-mill experiences with anime characters slapped on top of them. Hell, the Naruto series itself even had a few games preceding Rise of a Ninja that fit in that box as well. I really do believe Ubisoft did something special with Rise of a Ninja, but I'll explain what I mean instead of just saying that over and over. As the game's title suggests, Rise of a Ninja is a game that retells an abridged version of Naruto's journey from the very beginning up to the point where he defeats Gaara. That's 79 episodes of the anime, or 136 chapters of the manga. If you don't know the story of Naruto, then spoilers incoming first of all, but that's just enough story to fill out an entire game and feel like a complete experience. The game starts with that iconic shot of Naruto on the swing alone because all of Konoha is still afraid of the Nine Tails within him. They actually turned this into a game mechanic too. At the start of the game, no one likes you besides a few key characters like Iruka-sensei and Ichiraku Ramen Guy.
Nobody likes you, Naruto!
But as you progress and continue doing good deeds, the Hidden Leaf will warm up to you. And man, this is already the nostalgia talking, but it feels really good to revisit not just this game, but Part 1 Naruto back with the old Team 7, and you know, getting to meet all these other characters for the first time. I especially love how all the cutscenes are straight up ripped from the anime. The Viz cut too, so you'll get some goofy scenes like this one where Naruto is poisoned and he stabs his hand to draw out the blood, except he doesn't really. The biggest problem with this game shortening Naruto's story and only playing it through Naruto's lenses is you don't get to experience all of the big things, like the entire Chunin exams, or the Konoha crush. Also, things just kinda happen suddenly, to the point where even if you're strongly following the game, there are things you're just gonna be confused about if you don't know Naruto's plot. For example, when Orochimaru puts the 5-pronged seal on Naruto, they don't actually show that that's Orochimaru in disguise in the cutscenes. So yeah, if you're not privy, you're just gonna be confused when you're actually fighting him in game, and that's just straight up Orochimaru. As for how the game plays, it has 2 different gameplay modes. Open world, free roam, platforming, adventure, exploration, and 3D fighter. And I want to start with the most interesting thing about this game first, being able to explore Konoha. The controls are pretty simple. You can sprint, double jump, and even drift, but the real fun comes in the jutsu you're able to do. To do these, you have to hold down the left trigger and use the sticks to input specific combinations. The Shadow Clone Jutsu lets you break down barriers so you can get to secret areas. Chakra concentration lets you walk up walls or on water, and the sexy jutsu just gets you more happiness from perverted villagers. I like how the game forces you to actually practice the jutsu before you can use it too. You know, even in the show, Naruto isn't just taught a jutsu and he immediately masters it. It takes time, and they reflect that in the gameplay. And I know what you might be thinking when you hear of an open world Ubisoft game. Repetitive bonus content with meaningless tasks that exist mostly as busy work. Unfortunately, that's the case with Rise of a Ninja as well. There are side quests in this game, but they're mostly fetch quests which send you through the same 3 areas outside of Konoha. You only go a bit deeper each time. For example, here's a quest that required me to jump through the trees and come to a certain area just so I could do a race that stops at this temple. That's fine enough, but the very next quest made me jump through the trees and return to the very same area just so I could walk a bit farther and rescue someone's dog that's totally not Akamaru. There are also races that are okay, nothing too special, just hit each marker in time. You know how this goes. Besides that, there's also a Konohamaru hide and seek minigame and a ramen delivery one. These are also boring. I hate to admit it, but what makes Konoha fun to explore isn't really anything you do in Konoha. It's mostly just the fact that you're running around a beautiful cel-shaded Konoha, and you get to run into Sasuke and the Third, and then you can travel to the training grounds and the Great Naruto Bridge by jumping across these trees. You know, the fun is just being there, and after that initial awe wears off, you're gonna be longing for something more to do. They do litter the world with these coins that you can spend on kunai or whatever, and that does incentivize you to go off the beaten path and explore some more. But this alone doesn't make Konoha a very captivating world. A big reason why I still have yet to 100% this game is because I'm tired of doing the same fetch quests and races with slightly altered points. But the worst thing about leaving Konoha by far are the constant fights you run into. You bump into an enemy every 5 seconds when you step out of Konoha, and there's no way to flee or anything. These mandatory battles also contribute to making all of the side quests where you have to step out of the hidden leaf feel like a chore. I mean, you do get rewarded for doing these fights and quests with money that you can spend on ramen to heal, or points to fully level up Naruto's combos and jutsus or whatever. And just be warned, there's a lot more fighting than what feels necessary in this game. Despite my bitching and whining though, fighting in this game is pretty fun. Challenging too, the enemy AI isn't a pushover. It's a 3D fighter, but it plays less like a Ninja Storm and more like a Clash of Ninja, which is to say your movement is more grounded and the combat goes a little deeper. There's X to attack, Y to do secondaries, and B to guard, but you can also do lows, aerial combos, toss kunai, reversal attacks, learn how to do these properly, killer combos, these also work as guard breaks, and the best part of it all is combat in this game feels really good. Controls are responsive, and there's a weight to Naruto and a hit stun to all of his attacks that just hit the right spot. I guess the grabs are really slow, and sometimes they just go through your opponent, but other than that, no notes against the combat for me. You know what else feels really good is pulling off those jutsu from before, but now in battle. It's risky because you can actually be hit while you're charging them. The combat is all about giving yourself space so you have time and opportunity to pull off these jutsu. That's why so many combos have ridiculous knockback. Do chakra concentration and your attacks will have more damage. Pull off sexy jutsu and you'll confuse your opponents by mirroring their controls. And if you do a shadow clone jutsu, you'll pull off a cool technique where you get to assign your own buttons in a QTE, and you and your opponent will have to fight to see who can press them first. You might have pulled that jutsu off, but you still gotta earn the damage. I can see how that last one might turn some people off, but everyone I played this game with in the versus mode found it fun. And this versus mode is a welcome change of pace from playing as Naruto all the time. There's more characters you have to learn because they all have their own combos and special jutsu that require special inputs as well. You can also tap into something called rage mode in battles. This is a last resort of sorts. When you take too much damage, you can press both shoulder buttons and be immune to damage for a short while. You can't use jutsu though. I tell you, it's a bit silly seeing these random bandits and rogue ninja rage in the story mode. It's like, dude, you're fodder, relax. But if you do somehow end up dying to that fodder, you can use these rare items called memory clips that let you mash A so you can quickly refill your health and chakra. You get a few of them throughout the story and you have to pay up to recharge them, so don't play like a bozo. Or do actually, because the game refills them all for free if you lose too much. There are no consequences to losing, so just be a loser.
Hello.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the extra content in this game as well. If you spend money in this one shop, you can unlock a couple watchable trailers and the game's concept art. The trailers are fun because they partly recreate the show's first two openings with actual gameplay, but what I really love is the concept art in this game. They use these wide angles and dominating shots that really take me back to a time when we still barely knew anything about Naruto's world and everything was awe-inspiring. And I think this game does a great job at capturing those moments of spectacle in the story and gameplay. A large reason why I played this game so much as a child is because I wanted to relive those moments. Having replayed this game, those moments of spectacle still hold up, but I can't say the same for the rest of this game. It just doesn't have as much to it as I remembered. My entire point at the beginning of this video was that Rise of a Ninja is one of the better anime games I remember playing, and that's still true. But I realize now that's mostly due to the fact that it's merely attempting to do something different. Ubisoft had one job with this game. That was to deliver an authentic experience as Naruto so you could relive his journey from neglected rascal to a respected young ninja, by not just his peers, but the Hidden Leaf as a whole. And I think they succeeded with flying colors there. It's everything else in this game that doesn't have to do with being a ninja that I consider forgettable. Masahiro Sakurai has a video on his channel where he talks about the challenges that come with designing a licensed game, and his points are basically that the source material limits the game design and faithfulness takes precedence over fun. I don't think there's anything inherent to Naruto that limits this game's design in a bad way, but Rise of a Ninja definitely delivers more in fan service than it does in being a fulfilling game. I'll put it like this: if you're a Naruto fan who can remember partly watching the series on YouTube with entire episodes uploaded into 8 different parts in 240p quality with one part missing and half of it being in another language, then this game is most likely going to be peak for you, and I think it'll be easier for you to overlook the boring moments. But if you're someone who's maybe not a big fan of Naruto, then you'll still enjoy the game, but it won't wow you at all. Best case scenario, the game turns you into a fan. Either way it goes though, I would still urge you to play the direct sequel, The Broken Bond.
Dynamic entry!
Unlike Rise of a Ninja, I didn't have this game growing up, so I only just played it for this video. But now that I have, I can say that this game does an even better job of recapturing those feelings that Rise of a Ninja left me with years ago, if that makes any sense at all. For starters, it adapts what I consider the more interesting half of Part 1, the Search for Tsunade arc, and the Sasuke retrieval arc. That includes our introduction to the Akatsuki, Naruto learning the Rasengan, Tsunade becoming the 5th Hokage, and of course Naruto and Sasuke's battle at the Valley of the End. I'm not gonna lie, I got pretty emotional playing this game too. I mean, it literally starts with the 3rd Hokage's funeral in a destroyed Konoha after he fought Orochimaru. This part of the story is just a downer, man. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but just enjoy those moments you do get with Sakura and Sasuke, cause oh my god. I swear I'm gonna go reread Naruto as soon as I finish this video. One thing I found really interesting about the Broken Bond was how it retold the story of Naruto. In Rise of a Ninja, you play the game in Naruto's shoes the entire way through, and that's fine, it's Naruto's story. But in this game, you get to experience parts of it through other characters' lenses as well. It blew my mind when I was forced to do the hospital fight as Sasuke instead of Naruto. You gotta remember, at this point in time, Sasuke had just lost a fight against his brother, which is why he was in the hospital in the first place. And he was also jealous of Naruto, who had recently surpassed him in strength and didn't show any signs of stopping. So the fact we got to play as the underdog, who had the more interesting story to tell at the time, was really cool. It didn't stop after the fight either. You even got to run off with him and meet the Sound 4, who would eventually lead him to Orochimaru. You still grow as Naruto in this game, obviously. Learning the Rasengan, for example, is an entire 3-day process, but I really enjoyed being able to follow Sasuke on his path as well. Because this part of the story is so focused on Naruto and Sasuke though, shocker I know, the game pads itself out by introducing original storylines for the supporting cast, and it even blends a few filler characters from the anime into the main storyline of this game. The inclusion of Aoi, who Sasuke was forced to watch Naruto defeat because he was too weak to do it himself, works well because it served as another motive for Sasuke to abandon the village and grow stronger. I like the Choji quest where Naruto and Shikamaru help him find ingredients to make his clan's special medicine as well, because Shikamaru used this opportunity to instill confidence in Choji, and it pays off later when he gets into a big fight. There are a couple of missions in this game that are obviously just here to pad out the experience, and they don't contribute much to the story at all, but they weren't egregiously bad or anything. They were just more fetch quests. Now, being a direct sequel and all, this game plays a lot like Rise of a Ninja, but with a few additions and changes that mostly work for the better. As I've already mentioned, you can control more characters than Naruto now. This means you can use more jutsu to help you out when you're exploring. There's only so much you can do with your jutsu though. A lot of them do the same exact thing in fact. Neji and Kiba can both detect hidden traps. Kiba and Shikamaru can both access small passages. Shikamaru and Choji can both save you from traps, and Naruto, Choji, and Sasuke can all destroy barriers. Besides being able to use shadow clones to bridge gaps, there's not a lot of creativity here with the jutsu, which is a shame. I do like how you don't have to perform the chakra concentration jutsu to walk on walls or across water anymore though. I don't know if the implication was intentional or not, but it suggests these rookie ninja have all improved their basic chakra control, and that's cool. And being able to walk up walls without having to do a jutsu is really handy too, because now you can walk up any flat surface as long as it's not blocked in any way. While there still isn't much to do in Konoha besides some races and games of hide and seek, this did make it a much more fun playground in the Broken Bond. Where this game really opens up is outside the Hidden Leaf Village. There's a lot more to do outside these village walls. Granted, most of it is fighting, but it's all in how it's presented. You can take on bounty hunting missions and track down rogue ninja, or you can do these optional fights if you find these hidden ninja cards, which are tough as hell, but they reward you with powerful scrolls that passively boost your characters in battle. Speaking of random battles, they don't happen as much in this game, by the way. Now you'll just see these bandits posted up next to a coin or an area you might need to get to, which I much prefer. You can get ready for fights at your own pace. There are also these mini games you can play in these other villages, and they're all pretty fun. You can earn some extra points on these to spend on the new leveling system if you get the high score for each one. Some of them are actually mandatory for the story, but they're inoffensive. Just don't play this Whack-a-Snake minigame on a controller with stick drift. It's refreshing being able to do more things and visit more than the same 3 places in this game. It's such a pretty game too. I mean, Rise of a Ninja was already a good looking game game, you can't go wrong with cell shading, but the new lighting system Ubisoft was boasting for this one makes the game look better in my opinion. There's a delicate quality to it that I love, an artistic one too. Notice how differently the game looks when you're controlling Sasuke. It becomes a lot more washed out and unsaturated, and if you'll notice, the sky even turns red at night. This is all just another step they took to show just how lonely and troubled Sasuke was at this time. I know I said this already, and I know Sasuke gets shit on a lot as the stereotypical edgy character, and he does deserve it sometimes, but being able to re-experience this part of the story of Sasuke gave me a newfound appreciation for his character, and I have to give Ubisoft kudos for that. The only thing I'm not a big fan of in this game visually are the cutscenes. They completely stopped using scenes from the anime because they wanted to show the entire story in engine, but the facial animations are so glaringly awkward. Even when characters aren't speaking, they just look off. But hey, on a slightly related note, at least you can play the game fully voiced in Japanese if you're into that.
Sasuke! 力ずくでも連れ戻す!
The combat is mostly the same, but it makes a few changes that I'm not really so fond of. I'll start with what's new before getting into what I don't like. It's a tag fighter now. You can't call an assist, but you can swap out to another character at the end of one of your combos for a bit more damage. You gotta be quick about it too, they don't give you a lot of time to swap. I highly suggest learning everyone's combos, by the way. It's actually really fun playing as characters other than Naruto, so get the most out of them. A lot of Shikamaru's combos make use of kunai, Neji attacks really fast. All combos are immediately unlocked for every character in this game thankfully, so you don't have to bother spending points or anything on them like before. The jutsus are fun too, and there's still little mini games the enemy can try to hinder you in, and with the game's roster being expanded, there's a lot more characters and jutsu to learn. Thankfully, the game shows you each character's jutsu combinations at the bottom of the screen in case you forget what to do and you need a quick reminder. It's much more convenient than having to pause and look at the available jutsu. Where the fighting starts to lose me is in actually fighting. Combat still feels good for the most part, but not entirely. You can say this is a skill issue, and I won't disagree because I'm not great at fighting games, but I found it hard to get used to how this game handled the forward attacks. If you want to do a punch, you just press X or Y, but if you want to do a forward punch, you have to move towards the opponent on the same input you attack. You'll just do another neutral attack otherwise. In Rise of a Ninja, you could just hold a direction and your character would still pull off that type of attack. And I'm not entirely sure why this change was made. I would say accidental misplays, but I made far more in this game than I did before. I feel like I started damn near all of my intended forward combos with an accidental neutral because I kept forgetting you have to move forward on the same input you attack. I know this might sound like a nitpick and it's not the biggest issue, but it just feels really unnatural and it's something I had a hard time getting used to. And they also introduced something called the overdrive meter in the Broken Bond, which is just a super meter. The point of it is, you can't use any jutsu at all until you do enough attacks to fill the required bar. I hate this. I'm supposing this was introduced for balancing reasons because jutsu were easy to pull off in Rise of a Ninja as long as you could quickly clear some distance between you and your opponent, but it already comes at the hefty cost and risk of the player using and possibly wasting their chakra. That's balance enough in my opinion. I don't like having to fulfill this secondary requirement each round before I can do a Rasengan. The overdrive meter is also how you tap into rage mode in this game, which I'm not a fan of. Instead of being a final move of desperation by the loser, it's now free immunity for whoever is already winning the fight. And finally, versus mode is back too. I didn't play as much of it in this game, but it has a pretty fun roster. I know I would have loved playing as Anbu Itachi as a child, and you can't go wrong when you have an entire character who's just Naruto wearing the jumpsuit either. I already loved one of these games, I guess I love another one now too. And of course, I do recommend both of them, but not without a couple notes. Rise of a Ninja is a good game. If even just a tiny part of you has ever wondered what it must feel like to be a ninja in the world of Naruto, ironically or not, then it's worth a shot at least. It's cool being able to manually input jutsu and jump across the trees to travel like they do in the show. However, it's also a very simple and very repetitive game. There's a very strong possibility you'll be bored of everything besides the main story by the end of it. With The Broken Bond, on the other hand, you're getting more of the same, with emphasis on the word more. Besides giving us additional content, The Broken Bond does an okay job spicing it up with these new playable characters, but that perspective shift in particular really contributed a lot to the already established story for me. All that said, it has its own faults as well. The combat took a step back in a few areas for me, and it's also rife with fetch quests. You might as well just get used to those if you're gonna play these games. Don't let that stop you from enjoying this game though. It's not one of those you have to rush and go play, but the way I see it, both of these titles are more than simple license games to be waved off. They respect and complement the source material in a way that many other anime games just haven't. And maybe, just maybe if we're lucky, more developers will look back on these games and learn to embrace their potential as well.